Before we start glazing your tiles, let's see what they've been through since you've last seen them. First, they had to dry for a couple of weeks, and then they got loaded into the kiln where they'll be fired at almost 2,000 degrees. Then the next day, we can open up the kiln and see how they turned out. The clay is now very sturdy after being fired, just like your ceramic dishes you might have at home. It looks like this one didn't quite get attached very well, but if we put glaze underneath it, it will fuse it back together and be as good as new. This is the glaze chart where we can see some of the colors that we have to choose from. If you look closely, you'll see that the bottom of the tile is darker and the top is lighter. That's because at the top of the tile, that's one coat of glaze and it's a little translucent. And then if you want it darker, you can do 2 coats, which is in the middle. And then at the very bottom, that's what 3 coats looks like. So keep that in mind while you're painting. Here's your setup for glazing. You should have your tile and the glazes and a glass of water and a paintbrush and maybe a sponge. You might start out with just a couple of colors because there might be a big line waiting for people to get glazes. Also, parents, before you give out the glazes, make sure you shake the bottles really well so that they're nice and mixed. The other thing I want to mention is that the colors on your palette right now are going to look a lot different after they're fired. If you want to see what the actual color is going to look like, then go back to the tile chart and look at what they look like after they're fired. And since it's hard to tell what colors are what, another trick is that you can write down the number or just put face color so that you don't get confused with which colors are which in your tray. So now I'm going to start painting the face, and I'll probably do about 2 coats. Next, I'll move on to the hair. This color looks pretty strong, and I think I might want a little translucency in the hair, so I'm just going to do 1 coat. Each time you switch from one color to the next, make sure you rinse your brush really well with water and then dry it really well with paper towel or a sponge. Now I've got white for my eyes, and then I'm going to do blue for my irises, and then I was thinking on doing a little dot of black for my pupil. As you might be able to see, I got a little bit of black on the blue part of my eye, so I'm going to rinse my brush and get a little bit of water on it, and then you can wipe the black right off with a damp brush. Now I'll touch it up with a little more blue. Now let's move on to the lips. If you use red or pink for your lips, it's going to look a lot like lipstick, which might be what you want. But I'm going to use number 222, which is a very pale pink, just a little bit darker than my skin color. For my letters at the bottom of the tile, I'm going to use a small brush and get the glaze down inside the letters. And then after I paint all the glaze inside the letters, I'll simply wipe away the surface area with a sponge. This way the blue letters will really stand out against the orange that I'm using for my background color. Now I'll finish painting the rest of my background designs. Another thing to keep in mind while glazing is that just like with paints, it's okay to mix or overlay colors, and sometimes it can create pretty cool effects. For this coffee cup, I'm going to paint a green background and then add a little bit of blue over the top. We'll see how it turns out. The last thing I'm going to do is paint on the orange glaze. The other thing you want to know is that you do not want to paint the edge of your tile. When the tile is all finished and hanging on the school wall, you won't be able to see the edge because there's going to be grout in there. And the other reason you don't want to paint the edge of your tile is because in the heat of the kiln, the glaze will actually drip off onto the kiln shelf and stick your tile to the kiln shelf, wrecking your tile and the kiln. So just make sure if you do get any glaze on the side of your tile to just wipe it off with the clean wet sponge. Now I've finished with my first coat of orange and I can see that it's a little translucent. So I'm going to add another coat so that I have a nice strong orange color. Alright, that looks really good. So now your job is done. But for the parents, there's one more step that they're going to do, and if you watch them doing it, you might wonder what they are doing. Before we fire your tiles, we need to put on a clear glaze. This shiny clear coat glaze, for now, looks green, but after it's fired, it will not look green at all. It'll be crystal clear. The only reason they make it look green is so that we know where it's been painted on. I'm using one of my paintbrushes at home, but at the school they have a thick bamboo soft brush, which makes it really easy to paint this glaze on. When you're painting on the clear coat, try not to smear the colors together, especially when you're painting light colors next to dark colors. And just one coat is all you need. Finally, just check the edges and the back of the tile to make sure they are clean of any glaze, and then they'll be ready to fire. So that's it. Have fun painting your tiles, and if you have any questions, just let us know.